Can I say welcome to everyone. My name's William Benson. I'm the Chief Executive here at the Borough Council. I'm about to hand over to Jane March, who will welcome you formally. But I just wanted to talk about how we're going to run this. We've got a very large number of people on the phone, so it's going to be absolutely impossible for us to have questions and everyone speaking over one another. That never works. So what we're doing is we've set up an email address and a telephone number that we've given you. A lot of you have sent in questions already that we'll respond to. If any of you have questions during the call, please either email them or text them on the numbers you've been given, and we'll do our very best to respond to them. I've also asked people if they could just send an email to an address I'll give you in a second, to let us know that you're on the line and so that we've got a record of who's here, so we can email out to you any information or any responses to questions. That email address is Hilary Smith, so Hilary.Smith, so HILARY.Smith @tunbridgewells, all one word, .gov.uk. So if you could just contact Hilary Smith, that would be very helpful, and it means we can get back in touch with you. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to Councillor Jane March, who's our Cabinet member responsible for economic development.
Thank you, William. Welcome to this conference call, and thank you for joining us. We do recognise the gravity of the situation and the speed with which it's evolving and the impact that this is actually having on local businesses. William is going to talk a bit about what the council is doing. Greg is going to talk a bit about what the government is doing, and Ross is going to talk about what the BID is doing. And then we'd like to hear from you. We might not be able to do as much as you would like us to do, but we will try to help, and we'll certainly listen and do everything we can to put your concerns to government. I'm also pleased that a number of sector representatives, including Alison from FSB and Tudor Price from Kent Invicta Chamber of Commerce, are actually going to join us on this conference call today. So over to you, William, I think.
Okay, thanks very much, Jane. So we've got well over 100 people on the line, which is absolutely fantastic, and I think demonstrates the gravity of the situation and the concerns that people have. So as I said earlier, when we get into questions, I'll chair it, and I've got a screen in front of me. We're all kind of spaced out, you'll be pleased to hear. I've got a screen in front of me with questions, and as they come in, I'll put them up and we'll answer them live. There are some specific individual sets of circumstances where it's probably more appropriate we respond to you individually. So I thought I would just say a couple of words about the role of the council. So we've been hugely busy over the past week putting in place all our business continuity arrangements to make sure that our essential services can be delivered. We've got a list of services that include, housing, council tax supports, benefits, obviously things like things for public safety, like the cemetery and the crematorium, just making sure that we can cope in the event that either demand goes up or staff resources go down, both of which seem very likely to happen. Alongside the work we're doing on our own services, we absolutely recognise the impact of the Covid-19 pandemic on both communities and businesses. And this week we're going to be very significantly ramping up efforts to identify and contact and provide for our share of the 1.4 million people who've been asked to be shielded from social contact, and also anyone else who is socially isolating themselves for any other reason. And we're working very, very closely with partners, with health colleagues from the police and Kent County Council and the voluntary sector and many others to make sure we can do that. In terms of businesses, I've spoken to a great many businesses and really recognise the challenges you're facing. Greg and I have been pressing your case hard with government. We've been talking to the BID, we've been talking to some of the business representative bodies. I guess most importantly for you, there's a desire to ensure that we get the support that's been announced in terms of business rate relief and grants out of the door as quickly as possible. And when Greg and Ross have finished speaking, I've got our head of revenues and benefits who manages that, and she can talk about the guidance that we received yesterday and our plans for trying to make sure we get that money to you as quickly as possible. So I'll now hand over to Greg.
Thank you, William. It's Greg Clark here, the MP for Tunbridge Wells. I just want to start off by saying a big thank you to all you for what you're going through in what must be what is obviously a nightmare time. Quite apart from your own financial worries, you've got to take on your shoulders, I know, the people that depend on you, your workforce, your employees, and actually your customers as well. It is a nightmare to be going through, and your resilience is remarkable. I've spoken to many of you over the last few days, and those that have been in touch with me that I haven't spoken to yet will talk during the next few hours. Clearly what we need to do is to make sure that you emerge from this crisis intact. You all are absolutely crucial to the lifeblood of the town and the borough. People depend on you both for their livings and for the goods and services you provide. This is a health crisis that we need to get through, but keeping you intact, that has to be the most important guide to policy. Some of you will also have important roles to play during the crisis, that you need to keep supplying goods and services to our citizens, and you have a major role there. We'll go into some of the details of what is available, what's been announced so far in terms of assistance. But you will probably know over the course of this week that every day I've been pushing the government in Parliament to go beyond what has been announced. In my view, the government needs to give you the means to be able to continue in business, to continue to employ your members of staff. That seems to be, that pressure seems to be having some result in that you probably saw the Prime Minister last night promised a statement from the Chancellor and himself today. We'll have to see what that contains this afternoon. And with William's indulgence, I think it might be appropriate to reconvene this discussion once we know more about that in the days ahead. But in the meantime, there are some steps that were announced on Tuesday this week. It seems a long time ago, but it was less than 3 days ago. They were to have a 12-month zero business rate liability for all retail, hospitality and leisure businesses. There are grants that are available, £10,000 for all businesses that are eligible for small business rates relief, £25,000 for retail, leisure and hospitality businesses if your rateable value is between £15,000 and £51,000. There is this loans scheme, zero interest for the first 6 months, organised through the British Business Bank. That allows £5 million per business of lending through that. And no doubt there'll be questions around that. But I'm conscious that, important as these things are, from conversations with you, I've got a very clear view that it needs to be much more extensive than this, the support, and particularly for your ability to employ the workforce. I'm going to continue pressing on that. And I know absolutely the urgency. Some of you have already had to make very painful decisions about employees. Some of you will be thinking about that today, tomorrow, and across the weekend. So I know that you're going to have weeks or even days to get satisfaction on this.
Okay, so thanks very much, Greg. One of the things I should have said, and I'm sure you know this, is obviously Greg is no longer part of the government, so he's not privy to behind-the-scenes information. But clearly that frees him up in a way to be much more proactive. And I'm sure many of you heard his question in House of Commons yesterday. So I'm going to hand over now to Ross, who is here from Royal Tunbridge Wells Together, which for those of you not in the town centre is an organisation that kind of represents and acts on behalf of town centre businesses here in Royal Tunbridge Wells, and which is funded by a precept on the business rates. Over to you, Ross.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Tunbridge Wells Together represents around 700 levy payers in the town centre. Our core aim is to invest in the town centre, to provide inward investment, to promote business support, and to make Tunbridge Wells a destination of choice rather than just a destination of habit. We aim to increase footfall, dwell time, and visitor spend. Now, clearly, at the moment, that's a considerable challenge, and we are doing everything that we can to support our levy payers and every business in the town centre to encourage the message that where possible the town centre is open for business, but where it's not possible that we are working tirelessly with others, particularly everyone else on the call, to support businesses as best we can. But it's not just around providing support in the immediate term, but it's also the sort of immediate post-crisis period when the town centre and our businesses will require just as much support and promotion to make sure that we can get back to normal as quickly as we possibly can. So we are communicating on a daily basis with all our levy payers. If you haven't been getting our newsletters, then please go to our website, which is tunbridgewellstogether.co.uk, where you can find all the information that you need. So we're providing as much business support and communication as we can. If there's anything that we're not doing, then please do get in touch, and we will do everything that we can to support you.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Ross. So last but not least, I'm going to hand over to Sheila, who's going to talk a bit about the announcements on Tuesday, what they mean and how we're going to implement them. We've given her access to the questions we've received in advance. There are more coming in as we go, so she'll try and deal with as many as she can, but what I'll do is as more come in, I'll put them to her to respond. So Sheila, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So the retail relief is now going to be 100%. So that means that you will have if you qualify, you will have no business rates to pay for the next financial year. There's no need to apply for this relief. We are aiming to identify all of those businesses that will receive the relief. Bills will be issued next week, showing that there will be no business rates payable for next year. If you haven't received an amended bill by the 31st of March, then I would suggest you contact us and we can have a look. It might be that we're having to manually go through and look at those premises that we think will qualify. So it is a manual task, so it could be possible that it has been missed. So it's important that you contact us as soon as you can. So as Greg has already said, there are some grants available. So for those businesses that have a retail premises, businesses that have a rateable value between 15,000 and 51,000, you may qualify for a grant of up to 25,000. For businesses with a rateable value below 15,000, a one-off payment of 10,000 will be made. The government has said that it will provide the funds to the local authorities in April. So as soon as we've got the money from the government, we will be able to make these payments to you. What we will ask you to do in the meantime, we're going to also be sending out letters next week to all of the retail premises and those in receipt of small business rate relief, asking you to complete a form online so that as soon as we've received the funding from the government, we're able to get those payments off to you as soon as we can in April.
All right. Thanks very much indeed, Sheila. So what we'll do now is I'll kind of throw it open to questions. So keep emailing them in or texting them in. I'll read out the questions and then I'll ask someone around the table to respond to them. So if I start off just with a few questions about business rates relief, Sheila. Some of these might have been answered. People have asked how do they apply and how quickly will it be paid. I think you've answered that. We've had a question about the categorisation of premises. So people have asked about other sectors that are struggling. Estate agents have been mentioned, warehouses and premises. Can you address that?
Yep, certainly. So we've received quite clear guidance as to which premises do qualify. At the moment, estate agents and warehouses do not qualify. But if anybody is unsure of whether they do, then by all means, please contact us, and I can look at your situation individually.
Okay, thanks very much. And just two other specific ones. So someone's asked that they're in between premises, they've kind of sold one or about to buy another. Presumably they wouldn't be eligible for anything because it relates to premises.
That's right, it's on the premise that you occupy, yeah.
Okay, and a final specific question for you. We've had some businesses saying they operate in a larger set of premises and that they're recharged a proportion of business rates by the landlord. Would they be eligible for anything?
No, you have to be a direct business rate payer. So if you pay your business rates within your rent, then I'm afraid you would need to negotiate with your landlord to see if he is able to reduce your rent at all.
Okay. Greg, I think some of these might have been answered in your statement. Quite a few questions on staff, people saying that they're struggling to sort of cover the wage bill. We've had one or two businesses saying that they plan to close on Sunday unless something comes up. And the fact that the loans that have been offered clearly have to be paid back, and people are going to struggle to do that, and could they be grants instead? Do you want to comment on that?
Well, I completely understand the concerns about that, and what I want the government to do this afternoon is to make something that they've never done before, which is a commitment to support the wages of your workforce, and to do it very urgently. I think they need to send a signal today that they're going to guarantee that. There are all sorts of reasons for that. We need to keep you in business. As I said, it will be a disaster if this health catastrophe turns into a permanent economic catastrophe, and we need to stop that happening. It is, frankly, much better and much more humane to pay people through their employers that they're used to at this time, rather than make them sign on for welfare. And the process of signing on for welfare is itself often complex. So there are good practical reasons to do so. But fundamentally, this crisis is not your fault. You couldn't reasonably have anticipated it. And my view is that the government should act as a kind of insurer for business continuity and put you in a position that you're able to continue paying your employees. Now, I've made that statement very strongly. I had this urgent question in the House of Commons yesterday. The government's promised to come back today. I'll give you my assessment of it when I see it as to whether it does the job.
Okay, so a couple of questions. Well, a couple of the same questions for Ross around the bid levy, whether that's still going to be payable.
Yes, it's a question that I've been asked by a large number of levy payers independently and away from this call, so I'm not surprised that it has come up. I mean, clearly it's a very challenging time for all businesses. The levy itself is not being cancelled because it's a surcharge on the or a percentage of the rateable value of the premises rather than on the business rate, so that the two things are not explicitly linked in that way. In terms of the levy itself, obviously the timing is incredibly unfortunate because our levy invoices have just been sent out on our behalf by the council. So the timing, I fully understand, is challenging, and we are offering leniency for levy payers that are struggling. The key point that I would want to make on this is that business rates are collected locally, but they are then spent nationally. So there is no local impact or benefit from those business rates. Whereas the levy that we collect, 100% of that is spent locally, whether it's providing direct business support or direct support for our levy-paying businesses, or the promotion of the town centre itself to encourage people to come in and to be spending money where they can. So what I would say is that the proposals and the projects and the services that we are providing and that we are putting in place over the next few days are directly here to support local businesses rather than to be distributed on a national level. So as a bid, we are funded by businesses in the town centre. It's your bid, as you rightly say, it's your money, and you just let us know how you'd like it spent and on what you'd like it spent on in terms of what the immediate priorities are, and we will make sure that we do that for your business.
Okay, thanks very much. So I'll deal with a few from the council now. So I've had a question about when the government's also announced some funding for vulnerable people. I think £500 million nationally, and I've been asked when that's going to be made available. And the answer to that is, I'm afraid we're still waiting for the allocation of what we are being given. I've been told we should expect that today. So once we've got that, we will look to get that out as soon as we can. And just to be really clear on council tax, we are being, incredibly, flexible. We're not sending bailiffs out. We're, talking to anyone who wants to, back end or spread payments and so on. I'm going to hand over to Sheila to ask a few sort of snappy questions about business rate relief and the loans. So can you just explain what doesn't qualify as retail?
Okay, so the guidance we've been given by the government are that banks, building societies, cash points, betting shops do not qualify. Estate agents, letting agents, employment agencies do not qualify. Vets, dentists, doctors, osteopaths, chiropractors don't qualify, and solicitors, accountants, insurance agents and financial advisors, as well as casinos and gaming clubs.
I have to say, this is one of my bugbears that every year when we get given the kind of the information on business rate reliefs, there's someone in Whitehall writing all this down, and I think when this is all said and done, I think one of the things we need to look at is how we can take a more local flavour in terms of what does and doesn't qualify. So a few other things then, Sheila. When will the grant be given? Because you said April. People are saying for cash flow, the more precise you can be, the better.
We've been advised that we will be getting the grant probably the second week in April, and then we'll be geared up to issue our payments straight away. And will it be a lump sum? It will be a lump sum.
Okay, thank you very much. Greg, a few things on tax. So people, and I suspect these are probably not things for you, people have asked whether we can cut some taxes now, such as VAT and pay as you earn. It's also been suggested that the 3-month window for kind of delaying it is a really bureaucratic process. Businesses are saying there are huge queues, you have to talk to HMRC to do it, can't it just be automatic?
Yeah, so one of the other ways we can get cash into businesses, or at least keep cash into businesses, is to cancel the payments that are due both for VAT and PAYE. I think that would be one thing the government could do, and I hope they'll contemplate that during the day. It's fair to say that the HMRC have introduced this time to pay facility. I know that it can be difficult to get in touch with them. If you let me know if you're having any difficulties with that, I can put pressure on them. But my own guidance in these circumstances is any reasonable proposal from a business, HMRC would find it very difficult to refuse. If you let me know what you're proposing, I will back you up on that.
Okay, thanks very much, Greg. So we've had a couple of emails saying that the travel industry has been very significantly affected, and that their rates are over the 51,000. Would they be eligible for any grants? It's one of you, I think, Sheila.
The ceiling is 51,000 at the moment, and I'm not aware of anything that's being proposed for those with a rateable value over 51,000.
Okay.
Part of the purpose of this call and the questions that are coming in is to gather issues on which the government need to be pressed to go further, and what's been said about other types of businesses that should be eligible for the same business rates treatment, something that I'll take out of this call and press ministers when Parliament resumes on Monday.
Okay, Sheila, you want to...
If I could just come in, William mentioned travel agents. Travel agents, if they've got the rateable value under 51,000, then they would qualify.
Okay, so there's been a few kind of other issues that have come up. So one is saying that bars and restaurants are trying to switch from people coming in to takeouts, and can the council set up free parking collection areas or banish wardens? I think that's a very good suggestion, and I'll look at whether and how we can do that. There's another question about whether the council and Royal Tunbridge Wells together could help promote some of those home delivery type services to help them achieve success. Ross, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. We are more than happy to do that. We are already using our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, to promote any of our sort of food and leisure businesses that are open. We're sending out daily updates to our sort of consumer audience to let them know which premises are open and what trading that they're doing. We've got some very fleet of foot restaurants in the town centre that are already changing their offer. They're upgrading their Just Eat and their Uber Eats offers to increase their food offering, and obviously the changes in government legislation around takeaways and off-licence changes has been massively helpful. So we are here to provide any advice and guidance that we can to businesses in that sector that are struggling. But I would say in terms of the messaging that's coming out from us, keep your customers informed with regular updates yourselves. You will know who your customers are. I'm sure a lot of you have got your own databases and social media channels, so keep those updated. There's never too much information in this current climate, so keep updating, keep tweeting, keep Instagramming on a regular basis. And like I say, if you don't have a delivery or an online service that's open at the moment, then have a look at what's out there. There is a lot out there that can be done to help and change your business model as best you can from an eat-in to an eat-out service.
Okay, thanks very much. Afraid some more for you, Sheila. So people are saying that's very helpful, the information on how to apply for retails. What about hospitality and leisure?
Okay, so hospitality, I'm not actually sure how that's covered at the moment. Certainly leisure, leisure would mean sports clubs, museums, art galleries, sports and leisure facilities, theatres, tourist attractions, but I'm not quite sure about hospitality at the moment, so I'll have to check that.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. We've had a few comments and questions about the sort of government advice, and what a lot of people have said is it's very frustrating that the government said avoid bars and clubs and social gatherings, but hasn't actually said close. And I think some people are saying it would be incredibly helpful if they just feel in limbo in the middle. And I've been asked a specific question about whether the council could close premises down. So the way in which we deal with food premises, the only reason we would be able to close them down would be if they were unsanitary, and I'm sure no one would be wanting us to close you down for those reasons. And there's then a process we have to go through which involves the court. So really, that would be a matter for central government to make the declaration. Do you want to comment on the kind of limbo point, Greg?
Yes, I will, and I appreciate the difficulty. I think it was the first case of this was when earlier in the week it was said that people shouldn't go to pubs, which obviously caused a massive drop in trade. But that didn't trigger, for those people who happen to have business interruption insurance, it didn't trigger the government direction that was needed to trigger that. Now that's been addressed with the insurance companies, but I'm well aware that there's a tiny fraction of businesses that will have such insurance. The difficulty in this is that the advice on behaviour comes from the scientific assessment of what is necessary at a particular point. But my view of the business response to that, or the response of the government to help businesses, is that it shouldn't be pedantic. If people are being advised not to go to pubs, then it seems to be a generous compensation for the loss of trade that results from that should be immediately forthcoming at the same time. And again, I hope we'll see in today's announcement a much more generous approach.
Okay, I'm getting lots. Sorry, were you going to come in, Ross?
Yeah, I would just wanted to come in on that point, just to make reference to a number of our levy payers have come back with feedback to say that those that have remained open are experiencing quite a lot of sort of social media shaming from the general public for being open. Obviously, that in my view is completely unacceptable. Where there are businesses open and they are being responsible in how they serve their customers and how they manage the process of deliveries and takeaways, I think there hasn't been the clear advice to shut down, and therefore if businesses, particularly those in food retail, are managing their deliveries and their supply responsibly, then the sort of social media shaming is not acceptable, and we're doing all we can to promote those businesses that are open and making people aware of that they are doing so in a responsible manner.
So can I just endorse what Ross says there, especially food retailers that are going to get into more of the takeaway business. That is incredibly important. People need to continue to eat, and there are people who, for one reason or other, won't be able to cook for themselves and cater for themselves, especially if they're feeling ill. So it is important that people should be able to send out on their behalf if they're feeling ill and get things provided for them. And businesses that do that should be celebrated and praised rather than, in any sense, criticised.
Absolutely right. And I should say we've had an email from Norwich who said that it would be a great move if we could create a directory of services available, in terms of support, home delivery, and so on, that we can pass on to those who are self-isolating. So I think if we have offers of people who are looking to deliver into the address, we can certainly do that. I think that's a great suggestion. So a few more things now. I've had first to say, a lot of you are saying this has been really, really useful, and thanks for organising it. We've also had people asking Sheila where we can get the forms. So what we'll do, if you go to our website, on the front page there's a banner. If you click on it, it's sort of coronavirus banner, there's a web page, and there will be 2 pages under that, one on support for business and one on support for communities. So by the end of today, we'll have that up and running, and we'll make sure that all the links to the forms you need and so on are up there. Sorry, Sheila's telling me that won't be till next week. We'll get the advice up, but we can't move faster than the advice we're being given from government, but we will get it up as soon as we possibly can. Greg, we've had a few questions about the self-employed. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I think this is obviously, again, a particular worry. The proposal that I made that the government uses the PAYE system to reverse the flow of funds and to send funds to businesses rather than taxes going the other way, that's obviously relevant for employed people. There would need to be, and I hope there'll be this afternoon announced, a comparable mechanism to get money in the hands of self-employed people, possibly using the tax system to base payments to the self-employed on what their assessed earnings have been in previous years.
Okay, thanks very much. I think we mentioned at the beginning we've got Tudor Price on the line from Kent and Victor Chamber. Unfortunately, along with the rest of you, he's muted. So I thought I would just read out a few things he sent in. So the first thing he said is that he's very happy to take questions via email. The second thing I should say is we're working with the Chamber to put together a hub with kind of advice on support and other information that will be useful, and mechanisms by which businesses can talk to them to get support. He has said that whilst we wait for support mechanisms to be in place, businesses should prioritise wage bills over everything else. Utilities and other creditors will wait. Those who are self-employed don't qualify for rate support, but they should contact DWP online as soon as possible. And he's also mentioned for some of the larger firms, and I'll come to this in a second, we have had some larger businesses saying, what about us? He's mentioned the fact that there is a corporate financing facility through the Bank of England that will buy short-term debt from larger companies and support your company if it's been affected by a funding squeeze. So I'm going to move on now to tax. So I think I talked earlier on about the VAT kind of issues, questions about whether it would be better to cut taxes straight away, such as VAT and pay-as-you-earn, as a way of providing funding straight away. Greg, I don't know.
Well, again, that's one of the points that I've made. It's on tax. Alison Palmer, I think, is on this call, has pointed out in tweets that HMRC do have a dedicated phone line for small businesses unable to pay their taxes, whether that's corporation tax, income tax, PAYE, or VAT, to be able to address time for pay, deferring payments. The number is 0800 015 9559. But if people follow Alison Palmer on Twitter, then you can see that there. I'll put that number on my own website as well.
Okay. I'm going to hand over to Sheila, if you just want to say something, because we've concentrated a lot on the town, about rural rate relief.
So, as well as the businesses that are in receipt of small business rate relief, those that are in receipt of rural rate relief will also qualify for the grant if their rateable value is under 15,000. So for the £10,000. So it's not just those in receipt of small business rate relief, but also those in receipt of rural rate relief. And also, I think it would just be good for me just to go through the process again for you to be able to claim your payments. So we're hoping next week we will have a form on the website which will invite you to apply for the grant and to give us your bank details so that as soon as we've received the money from the government, we can make the grants directly into your bank. We will be issuing letters just directing you to the website, but I don't anticipate the form will actually be there until the middle to end of next week. But as I've already said, the payments won't be able to be made until April anyway, but as soon as the form's there, we will write to you and advise you.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ross, you come in.
I was just going to ask a follow-up on that, if I may. Just put you on the spot. One of my levy payers, Matthew Sankey, has just messaged to ask. He has a rateable value of between £12,000 and £15,000. Obviously, food retailer. Would he be eligible for the £10,000 grant?
Yes, he would.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll take a few aimed at the council now. So someone's asked about Meadow Road car park. So we took a decision yesterday to close Meadow Road. That was partly because it's being subject to repeat vandalism, and we just haven't got the time or capacity to be dealing with that at the moment. And there is capacity in other car parks, including Royal Victoria Place, which is just over the road. More generally on car parking, people have asked about free car parking. we're working with the bid to look at when things pick up, trying to have a big campaign to drive people into the town and free parking will be part of that. Do you want to say something on that, Ross?
Yes, absolutely. We've been working with the council now for 6 months on providing a subsidised parking offer on Sundays, or parking for £2, which has been successful in increasing the number of visitors to the town centre on a Sunday, but also providing the added bonus of making it less expensive to come into the town on a Sunday if you're working particularly in one of the retailers that is open. And we are in active dialogue at the moment with the council to establish what offers can be put in place for after the crisis is over, to encourage people to come back into the town centre as quickly as possible, to stay for as long as they would like to, and obviously to spend as much as they are able to in our hospitality, retail and leisure businesses.
Okay, I've had just a comment from someone that if we can avoid shuffling paper and moving things, that the microphones on these things are very sensitive, so people just get, try and keep your hands off the table for all sorts of reasons. A couple of other things for me. Some people have asked about what's going on with the cinema site and Royal Victoria Place, and that if there were kind of news on those, that it might give a boost to the kind of restaurant, bar and retail community. So on Royal Victoria Place, the refurbishment is still going on. There's an £11 million upgrade, which is improving the kind of look and feel. And the last time I spoke to British Land, which admittedly was last week, they were hoping to announce new people opening following the refit. Whether that remains the case or not, I don't know. On the cinema sites, they're actively committed to starting work as soon as possible. I don't know whether the pandemic has put things back in terms of the availability of contractors and so on. But again, I spoke to them last week. They are spending very considerable sums on planning and taking the scheme forward. Because I'm a sceptical person, I also talked to our planners to make sure they were hearing the same thing, and they are doing everything they should be doing in terms of enabling, discharging pre-commencement conditions, party walls and all the rest of it. So that they are very, very committed to taking that forward. So there's been a few questions about loans. So one saying that the British Business Bank webpage ignores the fact that governments will only guarantee only 80% of the loan. Does it cover 80% and not 100%? Do you know that, Greg? I'm afraid I don't know the detail.
So it is, the loan is through the British Business Bank, and it is 80% is guaranteed to the lender. And if there is anyone on the call applies for a loan and has any difficulty, please let me know, because the intention behind it is not that the risk should stay with the business, but that it should go to the commercial lender, whose business, after all, is to lend. So the government is underwriting 80% of the risk to the lender. That's not an invitation to pass the 20% remain entirely to the borrower.
Okay, and a few more on loans. Someone very sceptical about the £5 million government loan, as the interest rate is unknown and the terms unclear. They don't want to be saddled with student loan type debt for a lengthy period of time. They've got 6 weeks of cash left and employs 240 people. Help is not the way soon. They'll have to liquidate.
Well, the interest rate is zero for the first 6 months, and it is useful to hear from that if people feel, in order to make a commitment to that they want further assurance as to what the interest rate is going to be after that. That is a very important point.
Okay, we've had a couple of people saying, is there a grant for businesses that don't pay rates? Well, not under the schemes that have been announced so far. What else have we got? On rents, can businesses have rents or sort of mortgage breaks in the same way as residential premises? I guess that's another one to push up the line, Greg, is it?
Yeah, so generally, I think obviously the action that's been taken has been on specific heads like business rates and the loan scheme. My view is what is now needed is the costs of business should be supported. So I've talked to a lot about wage costs. That's very important, but there are other costs too. It's been recognised for individuals with this rent and mortgage help that's been given. That applies to businesses as well. And it's worth saying, I think a lot of this conversation this morning has been about bricks and mortar businesses. We've talked a lot correctly about hospitality and retail, but we know, especially in the Tunbridge Wells area, that the service sector is absolutely crucial to our economy. And one of the things that I will make sure that I do is to make sure that the focus is not entirely to the exclusion of the service sector. Both are important, and both need to survive and prosper after this crisis.
Okay, someone's asked if we could just repeat the HMRC number.
I think I read it out. It is from a tweet that Alison Palmer sent. Let me come back to it.
Okay, all right. We can always send that out, and what we can do is, if Greg gives it to us, we can put it on our website. And Tudor has said that the Kent Invicta Chamber will be putting a helpline out shortly. So let's take a few more. So we've had a question about charities. And this is something that I've picked up, that charities, loans just don't work for them. They operate on, much smaller margins, and a number of them are vulnerable. And that's something we recognised very early on. Obviously, they are eligible for business rate relief already, and if they have retail premises, they will also be eligible for the grants. And that is something we've raised with government through all sorts of channels, that charities have an important role to play. And speaking of charities, the Nourish have asked if there's any way we could work with supermarkets to avoid mass shortages, taper down panic buying, facilitate a market type distribution. So just to say, Dawn, that as part of the conversations we're having with government about protecting, I think we spoke about this yesterday, protecting the vulnerable, we've got DEFRA who are looking at how we can prioritise deliveries to organisations like Nourish and people who are protecting the vulnerable. So I'm hoping those calls are going to bear fruit, probably literally, in the not too distant future. What else have we got?
Well, I've got the number for
the
HMRC time to pay helpline, which is 0800 015 9559. That's 0800 015 9559.
Okay. So, someone, one for Sheila here, wants to check something on business rates. Will they be eligible for the £10,000 grant because their rateable value is very low, so they don't pay any rates at all?
So if your rateable value is low, it's likely that you get 100% rate relief, small business rate relief already. So yes, you would qualify for the £10,000 grant. I also noted in your question, you said, will that have to be paid back? No, it is a one-off grant that's being provided by the government, so you won't have to pay it back.
Okay. We're getting a few questions now about insurance. So someone's saying we've got business interruption insurance underwritten by AXA, who said that the notifiable disease doesn't mention coronavirus, so they're not covered, but the same insurance company is saying that their holiday booked before the 16th of March will be covered. And we've also had just generally a lot of people saying that insurance aren't covering them, despite them having business interruption cover for notifiable diseases, and it's all because it wasn't on the list when they signed up, and they're not covered. So, anything to say on that?
So, Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, has had discussions with the Association of British Insurers to make sure that payments are made going to the points that we discussed earlier, even though government advice, or there has been no government ban on using hospitality businesses. That overrode some terms of the policy. In terms of whether the coronavirus is covered, that would need again to be agreed. If it's not covered and there's a possibility that it could be, that would need to be agreed by the ABI. I will take that back and raise that in Parliament next week, either if I can't do it on the floor of the House, then directly to the Chancellor or one of the ministers.
Okay, I should say, again, lots of people saying this is really useful, and lots of people have said that your question in the House of Commons yesterday was really helpful. So one here about sport, someone who runs a sporting business, about to send out renewal forms, wellbeing and exercise, paramount for keeping mentally and physically strong. Any grants available to them. So presumably they'd have to be in premises to be covered by the business rate relief and grants, Sheila, but there aren't at the moment any other grants. But in the same way as we raise the issues with charities, I'm hearing a lot of businesses in the leisure sector that are really struggling.
That's right. I mean, if they're a club, then they should be able to qualify for the grants. Okay.
So what else have we got here? We've dealt with that. Sorry, it's all. I was trying to kind of cluster them all, and they're all people coming in. Will utility companies be asked to freeze or reduce bills during the crisis? Anyone want to pick that up?
This has come up in Parliament. Some of the utilities have made statements about being flexible on the payment of bills, and obviously if anyone has difficulty paying the bills, then they should be lenient. Let me know if they're not. But I think the direct point about whether there should be relief from that would be another part, I guess, of a government package that should follow up the one that was announced on Tuesday.
Okay. Someone said that they're struggling to get into the call. Obviously, they're not on the call, so they won't hear this. But we will email out details of what's been said. And someone's asked whether they could have this is being recorded. If they could have a link to access that. Will kind of all lenders be encouraged to offer payment holidays? I think banks are being encouraged to be flexible, but we're hearing that not all banks are the same.
If anyone has an example of a bank that is not behaving responsibly on this, let me know and I will take it up with them directly.
Okay, I've been asked if there's any view on when a lockdown may be imposed in Tunbridge Wells. We literally. Could it be days, weeks, or months away? It'll clearly be a major game changer for retail and hospitality. I mean, it definitely will, but I'm afraid we just don't have any information on that. A few questions just about government advice on social distancing and whether whether businesses who can have people working from home really are doing everything they are to have people working from home. From a council perspective, I'd say 80-90% of our staff are working from home. Clearly there are some that can't because they have frontline roles, and we're rigorously and rigidly sticking to government guidance. I don't know whether anyone else, Ross or Greg, have got any views on that.
Well, obviously the advice is changing, it's escalated, but it is serious. I chair the committee in Parliament for Science and Technology, and we've taken evidence from the experts, and it's evident from what they say and their demeanour that this is not a kind of gold-plating, exaggerated requirement. This is a very serious virus that has big consequences, not just for the very elderly, but it's very nasty for younger people as well. So this isn't the government or or officialdom just being ludicrously over cautious. So I think we do need to do it. You can't see this room, but we are spaced very far apart. Those businesses that can operate through people working from home really ought to. My office is open, but we are doing it by having a single person physically in the office and everyone else working from home. I know we're not a business, and we don't provide the kind of service to people coming in person every hour of the day. But actually, we found that it has been possible to to manage probably more than we thought that it would be possible. But this is serious, and it is likely to escalate in terms of the strength of the requirements on it.
Okay, we've got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to rattle through some. So someone saying that the British Business Bank website says that companies with a turnover of less than £1 million will be eligible for the 6-month interest-free loans. So small businesses getting support, and a number of people are a bit grumpy about suggestions that some of the massive companies like Virgin might be getting support, but so people are saying that in the middle, what about businesses in the middle that aren't eligible for the smaller loans and aren't big enough to get hold of big support?
I think that's a good point to take away. The cut-off of £1 million, all these cut-offs, and there'll be people on the call I know who will just be the wrong side of the 51,000 rateable value, who will think that, and with good reason, that this is very unfair, and that business that has a rateable value of 52,000 is pretty identical in its needs to one with 49,000. And I think the same applies to this $1 million. My own view is evident now to everyone on the call, is that I think we need a much more comprehensive and generous package of support for businesses generally.
Okay. A few more people asking about whether there's likely to be a closure of pubs and other venues, and we're getting two sorts of concerns. One, that no one's coming in, and others saying people are coming in, and what sort of spacing should there be? So I think we don't know whether and when pubs are going to be asked to close. Obviously, keep a very close eye on the government website and the daily briefings. And in terms of space, I'm afraid that's not really something I think any of us are qualified to comment on. So a few quick questions then for you, Sheila. Do creative agencies qualify?
Creative
agencies for business rate relief. I think we'd have to check the guidance properly on that. Do the grants come with conditions? I think the answer is no, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're issued as of rights. A few people asking about rents, to landlords, and I imagine the answer to that is the government's encouraging everyone to be flexible, but presumably some of the landlords are facing pressures themselves. Someone who's an outside caterer, so not based in premises, and events including funerals being cancelled for the foreseeable future. Nothing I can see by way of support. Certainly they wouldn't be eligible for business rate support or grants, but some of the other packages may apply, and we'll put all the links to them.
There are quite a few businesses in that category, some of which have come to be very conscious of the pressures they're under. Yet again, I think this reinforces the need to provide help through wage bills, not just business rate bills.
Okay, and then I suppose this has to be the last one because we're coming up to time, and I think it's a good one to end on, which is someone saying that communication is key, both between governments and local governments and communities, but within businesses for employees, supply chains, customers. A very good point actually about cybercrime, and my observation would be that these sets of circumstances bring both the best out in people, but also sometimes the worst. And certainly we've seen an increase in malware and cybercrime attacks. And just a question at the end about whether there'll be measures in place to keep trade routes open in and out of the country and around the country, and that if that those supply routes were to be shut down, it would be absolutely devastating. So again, I don't know whether you want to comment on that, Craig. You probably know as much or as little as me on that.
Yeah, so obviously there are international conversations between the transport ministers of each country, between the business ministers. When I was in post, I had regular dialogues with my counterparts. That is going on, and everyone recognises in a connected world we need to continue to be able to supply goods and services to each other, including during the crisis. That is well understood. Just in terms of communication, I'd endorse what William said. I think it's very useful to have this call. I hope we can continue this throughout the crisis. William Benson and I talk every morning at 8 o'clock to make sure that we're up to date with each other as to what's going on in Parliament and what's going on in aspects of the Council have a view on. William might want to say a bit about his role, his connections with the local authorities across the country and across Kent, and of course the parish councils here. Okay,
thanks very much, Greg. I'm just going to tidy up a few things. So Jane March has asked me to emphasise that whilst the bid is kind of leading on things within Royal Tunbridge Wells, parish and town councils have a really useful role to play locally, and I know many of them are pumping out information and they have newsletters, so that might be a useful way in which to advertise services such as takeouts and the like. So I'll say a few words and then maybe I'll invite the other speakers, if they want to wrap anything up at the end, to do that as well. So Greg's absolutely right. There is a huge structure in place to deal with this, and everyone's heard of COBRA, but that cascades all the way down into local government and within Kent. We now have daily briefings at a sort of strategic command level with all the blue light services and health. The situation's constantly evolving, and you may not have seen anything visibly in terms of what we're doing, but just the kind of daily process of trying to make sure that we're coping with schools closing, people self-isolating, and one of our most important roles is just to make sure that the services we provide for the vulnerable can be maintained. So I apologise if there's not been much in the way of communication. We're certainly looking to ramp that up in the near future. I'm also plugged into some of the national local authority arenas, and I'll make sure that any of the issues you've raised in the course of this meeting, I think there are some clear themes emerging. I'll push that up the line, and I'm sure Greg will do the same within the House of Commons. So what I'll do now is I will kind of go in reverse order around the table. So perhaps if Sheila could just say any last words.
I was going to say what we'll do is we get to all of you in the same way as you knew about this meeting, a list of those retail premises that do qualify as retail and a list of those that don't qualify, so you're clear on whether you fall into one of those categories, which one you fall into.
Okay, Ross?
Thank you. I think it's worth putting this finding in the context of the last 6 months, particularly for Greg to feed back to colleagues in government, but also for us to all understand at a local level, is that our business community has only just started to get over the uncertainty and lack of investment caused by Brexit. We then had a very difficult trading Christmas and an awful February because of the poor weather. So businesses we know you were already struggling before this all started, and so this has just simply compounded what has been a really terrible 6 months. Obviously, 3 months ago, I would hedge a bet that 99 out of 100 of us had never heard of Wuhan in China, let alone understood what Covid-19 was. So everyone around the table here, just like they are in every other local authority and government department, is struggling to A, keep on top of it, and B, to provide as much information and effective information as we can. I guess the message is, we may not have all the answers at the moment, but we are certainly asking the right questions and feeding back when we do get information. I would just add, in terms of what you can be doing as retailers, is to sort of keep your customers informed with regular updates, promote the additional services that you may have adopted recently, like home deliveries, online ordering or e-commerce. Take time to review your website to make sure that it's up to date. Perhaps if you don't offer gift vouchers at the moment that can be used at a later date, why not think about that? Obviously, it's Mother's Day this coming weekend, so there's a great opportunity there. Happy Mother's Day to any that are listening. And leverage your promotion through social media to make sure that you get as much information as you can.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that.
I would just say finally, I have been, as we've been speaking, heckled by a couple of my levy payers online. Particularly a couple on Monston Road, I won't name you, but I am regularly walking around the town centre. I'm well aware of the difficulties that you'll have. No organisation is perfect, but we are doing everything we can to support every business. If you want to get in touch with me directly, please do it via ross@tunbridgewellstogether.co.uk. I will always reply to your emails.
Okay, thanks very much, Ross. So I'll hand back to Greg, and then maybe Jane can close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Perhaps I can thank you and the Office of the Council for what they are doing, obviously in organising this, but as you hinted at in your previous intervention, there is a lot of work that is going on the public safety and the blue light side. It is a huge amount of pressure on you and your staff. I'm very grateful to that. Can I thank everyone on the line? As Ross says, for many of you've emerged battered and bruised from the winter. Hope that the spring and summer were going to be a time of greater prosperity, and then this has come out of a clear blue sky. But it is not even a once in a generation, once in a lifetime event. The striking thing is that the World Health Organization has said that the last time we had a pandemic without a cure of this scale was in 1918, the flu epidemic then. So this is a once in 100-year event that you are being asked to make your way through. And I'm so grateful for the resilience that you've shown already in the last few weeks. I'm afraid there'll be more required. My view is simple: we need to keep you going. We need to do everything that we can to keep you going. I want you to be in a position that you can keep your workers, keep your employees employed. But I know that's just a pious hope if it doesn't come with enough practical support that gives you both the confidence and the cash to be able to do that. Based on what you've been telling me during the week in calls and emails, that's informed my interventions in Parliament. So I'm very grateful for that. It's getting some cut through. We'll see this afternoon whether the result of that is as comprehensive as I hope it will be. But you have played your part in feeding your experiences to me, in shaping up what I think is now a national appreciation of the urgent need, and much of that appreciation has come from your reports of what's happening in Tunbridge Wells.
Okay, Jane, so I'll ask Councillor Jane March then to close things at the end.
Thank you, everybody here, and thank you, Greg, for taking those messages further up the chain. That's important to everyone here, and to you out there listening. I feel that this has been successful this last hour. We've had 132 people participating in the last hour, and that says that you hopefully have found this useful. We found it very useful too. If it's something that can be repeated, if we are able to do so, I think it would be helpful. Let us know if you feel that it is successful and helpful to you. This is very fast moving, therefore you may need advice even next week. As I say, if we're able to do so, I think we feel it would be helpful to give you more advice and to hear your ongoing problems. So thank you very much for participating. I can't thank you enough. We want to support as much as we can, and please stay healthy. Thank you.